Hi, everyone. Carl Steinbeck here. Day 7, Massachusetts versus Karen Reed. So today, on Wednesday, we had day 2 of the key witness for the defense, Jen McCabe, testifying. It was wrapped up on direct with Hank Brennan, and then we did not finish today with her cross-examination by Alan Jackson, but it was really something to see, and it was a lengthy cross-examination. Like I said, we're still not over with yet, but the key takeaway that initially came out was the fact that the FBI showed up to Jen McCabe's house, and they had apparently two agents, and she saw them outside in the driveway and denied that she was Jen McCabe. And as it turns out, they later on came back to the door, and she had said she needs 10 minutes. She admitted who she was at that point, but said she needed 10 minutes to get ready. So get ready is a key operative term. And lo and behold, guess what she does? She goes off and makes a number of phone calls. And then when she opens the door for the FBI agents, guess what she says? When they ask her, what were you doing in that 10 minutes? She says, oh, I just had to make 2 calls. And she only mentions 2 of the numerous calls. So right there, she lied to the FBI. And if you lie to the FBI, that's a felony. That's a federal felony. And so her husband was one of the persons she called, and her husband right away rushed over there, and he showed up while the agents were there. And the when the agents left, she then, I guess, told her husband that she lied about who all she talked to. So at some point later that morning, she had, or that day, whatever point in time that was, she winds up and calls him back to say actually she wasn't telling the full truth on that. So in any event, it was really a damning moment for her credibility. It really shot her credibility through the holes. And because this judge is so much trying to help the prosecution, it did not come out that these were federal FBI agents doing a search for evidence on this case, and they're actually looking at corruption, law enforcement corruption. And so that did not come out, but I think the jury could read behind the lines, because Alan Jackson mentioned agent a couple times, referencing the folks that showed up the door. And so I think that the fact that she also called Brian Albert, whose house this happened to at 34 Fairview Lawn, it didn't come out that she called her attorney. I wonder if that's something she did not come forth on, calling her attorney, because she already had an established attorney at that time. As I recall, it was like a couple days after John O'Keefe was killed that she lawyered up. So, in any event, the other thing was when Alan Jackson was crossing her on Jen's vehicle out front, she had she basically had to go over specific timelines of what she was doing there during the key window from like 12:20 on to 12:45, 12:50ish on the 29th of January, when they were in the process of being at 34 Fairview, and she's looking out the window numerous times. So this is key testimony that never is brought out by Alan Jackson. So I think that, I'm sorry, the prosecutor, Hank Brennan. And when the prosecutor is hiding very, very scathing details of a witness and not bringing out certain points, you just lose credibility. So I think from what I gathered from what I've seen today, the prosecution was a big loss today. The defense was a big win. And Jen McCabe basically said, well, the way she was looking out out of the house there, the Albert's house, that Jen could see that at 12:45 she last saw the vehicle, Karen's car, and when she looked out again afterwards, she did not see Karen's vehicle there, and she did not see anyone laying there at all. And she would have been in the line of vision to see where exactly John O'Keefe was found a number of hours later there at 6:04ish in the morning. So as it turns out, I mean, this is a perfect defense Karen, because you have Jen McCabe, who's doing everything she can to try to sink Karen. She actually, on that point, I think she outslicked herself, trying to do the timeline and trying to sink Karen with the timeline she helped create and try to orchestrate with Carrie Roberts. That actually turns out to be something that is crucial to help Karen Reed's exoneration. So I think it looked like it boomeranged on Jen McCabe here big time. And so anyway, there's so many different holes that Alan Jackson poked through on her testimony today. She did not come across credible at all. Her direct on day one, she even got the jurors, sort of, at least a juror or two, maybe to snicker over a couple of comments she made. And she's trying to look like a soccer mom, like this an all-American mom. And then today that all unraveled. I mean, she just crashed and burned so fast. And there's totally night and day difference from yesterday to today. And so this is going to be another point they can drive home that even Jen McCabe, who they're not done with, I might add, they're going to get even more points scored out of her. They're having a break tomorrow. Apparently, one of the jurors has surgery, so they're off Thursday and they're going to be back Friday. So she's and it also came out, about her teaming up with Carrie Roberts and how she was very instrumental in getting their story straight. And they constantly are talking about their testimony. That essentially came out as well. So in any event, what I want to jump to is there's so many hours of it today, I can't cover all of it. But if there's a certain point that you guys want to have me cover of this, I'm going to start out with direct, just for the 911 call, and then I want to jump to the cross-examination, because I think the 911 call, I was wondering if the prosecution would be willing to bite the bullet on that one and play it out, because it's so bad for the prosecution. But what the prosecutor did on this case is he is trying to like gloss over it and make it look like, oh, it's just, she's just trying to be helpful. It's something that if they did not play this in a murder case, can you imagine a 911 call not being played in a murder case? That, I think Hank Brennan realized that if he doesn't play it, it's so bad when the defense admits it that they can then argue that they didn't even want to have Jen's words be heard to the 911 dispatcher. And and I do think the 911 call sounded different. It sounded like it's sped up or something. It does sound different, but this is what they played in court. Okay, Karen Brinson. I've done so many jury trials that I know how jurors think and act, and I've been very good at predicting outcomes. So if you're saying I'm only a defense attorney, no, I'm actually a prosecutor. Many times in my career, numerous times I should say, or else I was a supervisory prosecutor, coaching and mentoring other folks. So don't look at me some kind of defense attorney that is only on the defense side. In fact, the first case I've covered the first 2 years on this channel, I've been hammering away at the prosecution because they're not doing enough to fight crime and do justice. So don't act like I'm some kind of defense hack. All right. So you obviously don't know my channel very well. So one second here. All right, here we go. I'm following on this. Hold on a second. I'm on NBC 10 Boston. So if you guys know of some kind of hour minute marker that you want me to go to, this would probably be easiest. But if you send me a link, I can actually upload the link, and whatever spot you left it at on a timestamp for YouTube, if you know how to do that, then I could go directly to that spot. Otherwise, just tell me the time to go to on this NBC 10 Boston. So here we go. Here's a 911 call.
Thank you. With the court's permission, I'd like to play Exhibit 45.
Yes.
No, this is for lot 100.
Yes, I need someone to come to 34 Fairview Road in Canton, Mass. There's a man trapped out in the snow.
You can't, hold on, you can't please go. You can't, okay?
Yeah, I don't know why I did that.
I mean, that sounds like a really bad quality, right? Is that really that bad in the courtroom? Where she's talking about manling the snow, or where's that fact? You can barely make that out. We had it much clearer when I was presenting that a week or 10 days ago, whatever it was.
If you have to count the rest of the line.
I can keep going. Like, you know, that area is 15, okay? Okay. I know.
The call gets transferred.
I don't think like it happened.
911, what's your emergency?
Immediately to 34 Fairview Road, Canton, Mass.
What's going on?
There's a guy on the front.
A guy.
The snow.
Is it snow? 34?
Yes, 34, the Alpha resident, yes, I just pulled up and found it.
Okay, 34 Fairview?
34 Fairview, Canton, Mass, yes.
911, that's under bullet, where's your emergency?
Sounds sped up.
Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry, can you come to 34 Fairview Road in Canton?
34 Fairview?
Yes, there's a man unresponsive in the snow.
Okay, what else?
He's gonna get here, okay?
Okay, what's going on? Is he face down?
We just flipped him over.
Okay. And who's that in the background? Is that someone related?
That's his girlfriend, his name is John McCabe.
Okay, how old is he?
John is 46 years old.
46, how long has he been outside?
I don't know. I don't know. He got out of the car and it could have been a couple of hours. Is he, Terry? Is he? I don't know if he's breathing. There are two women trying to, it could be heat and they're hysterical.
Okay, can you just try to ask him? I know it's tough, but we already have the fire department going, they just gotta know.
Okay. Is he breathing either? It doesn't seem to be breathing.
Okay, do they know how to do CPR? Do they want to test it?
This guy sounded like he had no urgency whatsoever. When any other 911 tape I've heard, it sounds like he had no urgency. Now he sounds like he's very energetic. He's trying to like really get some quick answers out of Jen McCabe, and that's not what happened on the other 911 tape. So I hope the defense caught this, and they're going to play their own version and show the difference, because speeding it up, you don't notice that how calm and relaxed and non-urgent she sounded.
No, I guess he's gone.
Okay, they don't feel comfortable doing so?
No, I think he's passed away.
Okay. All right, we have the fire department and the police department on the way. If everyone's declining CPR, then I'll hang up with you, and if anything changes, you can give us a call back. Where are you guys upside?
I'm right up front.
I mean, I think they need, JC saying, can they defense slow this 911 call down and replay it? The speed is so fast, it makes her sound more concerned than she is, and is just treating it more urgently than she did. Yeah, they need to, I hope they're on the ball with this, because this is not the one we heard, and this is totally typical something that you would see the prosecution doing, is trying to manipulate evidence like this, right? So yeah, look at her. She doesn't have any tears on this at all. She's just looking down because she can't look up. She's not looking at the jury now. She looks over there for a second, I think, and then looks away. She's not trying to make eye contact with them now. Yeah, this is, unless there's a slower version that's been played out there for the world to hear, this 911 call does not sound like the one that I just did like a week or 10 days ago, whatever it was.
I know, Mom, that's all the Andrews. I know, honey, I know. Carrie, you gotta get off of me. Carrie, you gotta get off of him.
You know if there's any alcohol or drugs involved?
He
We never heard, we heard Karen screaming in the background. We never heard it that quick and sharp. So this does look like it's been sped up for sure.
Like I'm talking hours about maybe, and I don't know how long it's been.
Okay, is there any bleeding or anything? Maybe his head out?
Yes, possibly, I think he's bleeding in the face.
Okay, bleeding from the face. All right.
Yeah.
Now, I think the pool of blood, if there is any.
Something's coming out of the nose, and one of the women is doing CPR.
Okay, one of them is doing CPR?
Yes, they're both working on him.
All right, if you
Look at her. She really looks guilty here. Instead of looking sad, she looks guilty. She's looking down a lot, blinking a lot, as if she's like trying to hold back tears, but there are no tears here. She's just nervous and she looks angry and guilty. KFG, please do a short highlighted tampering 911 call. Hope the defense notes it. I don't do that kind of the shorts. John does all that. My brother John does all that. So maybe he can do a side by side or one after the other comparison.
CPR, and just let me, you give us a call back and you tell us your response, right? But we're on the way.
Okay, thank you.
She did say he got out of the car. He did mention a couple hours ago.
Ms. McCabe, describe your mental.
And I think if I recall right, it was a longer call than this. So she also didn't go in the house of Brian Albert until 6:39. That came out today. So she waited like 30 minutes roughly before going into the house there. Unbelievable. Yeah, so anybody think it's consistent? Meatball, you're saying this is wild. I missed this afternoon. The defense has a better version. I think last year they played Karen's voicemail that recorded the 911 call. So that would help show the true light of it. I mean, could this be innocently done where they just play a faster version? Mel, you say a dozen person conspiracy where none cracks, even with the FBI involved. Not fine. I've seen conspiracies much bigger than that happen with high levels of government. Everybody just circles wagons and covers their tracks, and everybody sticks to the script. So you obviously don't know how conspiracies work and how frequent and often they happen. I mean, probably the most well-known conspiracy was what happened to that pro football player that turned Ranger for the Army, and he deployed to Afghanistan, and he got killed in Afghanistan, and they said it was he died in a heroic battle, and as it turns out, they'd all fabricated all of his high-level awards and description to the public of how he died, and it was all a lie. It was all the fact that it was friendly fire, meaning one of his fellow comrades killed him accidentally, obviously, but in the end, all the lies came out. So many people were involved in that, and it was all something to avoid embarrassment. So here you got all these people are tied closer together. They all got lawyers. So just because the FBI wants to interview folks, and we don't know how many of them they interviewed, but we know that they did talk to Jen, and she talked to him briefly, and then she wasn't comfortable. So the thing is, you just need to wait and see, and we don't know that the whole thing's over yet either. So
Mental state when you were speaking to 911.
I guess the best way to describe it was I was in shock. My heart was racing.
Yeah.
I
Remember that?
was trying to be
Remember Hank maybe said play to the 45. So maybe he's trying to even shorten it by going to 45 and then speeding it up as well. So that's what I think he's doing. He's trying to shorten the call. Yeah, because we heard her saying get off him. And so anyway.
as helpful as I could and get the information to the most important information out as quick as I could.
The most important information is as quick as I could. So in other words, I don't want to mention that he's an officer, a police officer, and you want to mention his name, and you want to mention that you got to hurry because I think he's dead. I mean, none of the most important information she completely bypassed it and made it out to look like it's just some drunk passed out in the snow, some bum.
The 911 operators, but also the scene there with Karen and Kerry was a bit chaotic between the two of them. So I was just trying my best to be as calm as I could, to get help there as fast as I could, and to answer their questions the best that I could.
So here, Hank knows this is a really, really thing that's hurtful to the prosecution. So he's trying to have her smooth it out and explain what he's basically having her explain why she was so calm and non-urgent about it.
Before you told the 911 operator John O'Keefe's name and his age, you said there's a man in the snow. Do you know why you chose those words?
See, he knows it's bad. Look at her.
I think I just
Look
wanted
up.
to get out the most specific details. So a man.
That's a specific detail. No, a real specific detail would be it's a cop. It's a Boston police officer. He's dead or almost dead. Hurry, hurry. We got to save his life. How soon can an ambulance get here? She never once said send an ambulance, anything like that.
And in the snow versus, John O'Keefe and into a story. I think I just was get the details to them as fast as possible to get help there to him as fast as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Keep saying as fast as possible, fast as possible, fast as possible. Yeah. Yeah. And what did you do? You slow rolled it on purpose. You slow rolled it. You didn't sound urgent. You didn't even ask how soon are they going to be there. You didn't run up to your brother's door, which happened to be unlocked, and see if they're okay. You never called his number on the way over. You never called him even from the house when you first got notice that John O'Keefe was missing. There's so many things she could have done. She could have called Chris Albert at Canton Police Department on the way over. Hey, we need help. Send help to look for him before they knew he was even in the snow. And the way she stalled this whole thing about going over 34 Fairview. So again, we have a first responder, 30-year Boston Police Department detective in the house, right feet away from his front door, roughly 72 feet away from the front door is John O'Keefe laying there, and she doesn't rush in, and she's just going to sit in the car the whole time. How do we know they didn't have some fugitive come back because he worked on fugitive task force missions? How do we know if some fugitive didn't come out there and slaughter everybody in the house? There's one answer that explains it.
When you told the 911 operator that your friend John O'Keefe was the person lying in the snow, how did you know his age?
We used to joke because he was a couple months older than me. So I would, say, oh, well, you're older than me. It was a silly little thing between friends.
When you called the 911 operator, had Kerry and the defendant already been around or near John?
Yes.
Do you know if they had begun trying CPR before you called 911?
Okay,
I'm not sure if they had, because Karen had straddled him and was lifted her shirt, was warming him up, and then Kerry was yelling at her to get off. And I think when Kerry got the blankets and was trying to put him under John, I think as she started to move him and wipe him, blood started to come out. And then Karen was afraid that he was going to choke on his blood and wanted to move him on his side, but then Kerry was yelling at her, we can't move him. And this was kind of all going on while I was talking to 911.
You described what you saw, and you said at some point he was bleeding from the face area. Was that before or after he was moved?
After.
Before he was moved, did you see any active bleeding?
No.
She sounds really shook up about it. Looks really shook up about it, doesn't she? Looks guilty. Doesn't look upset about it. Looks guilty.
After you called 911,
Mystery Singer, you're saying she says, called John O'Keefe, it doesn't seem to be breathing. Did y'all hear that?
what do you do next?
I think I called my sister and she didn't answer. And then I think I called her as I was walking over to John and she didn't answer. And then I immediately got down on the ground and Kerry Roberts asked me to take over.
How long did you try to help John for?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
How long were you and the defendant and Miss Roberts there before someone else arrived?
Police officer was the first to arrive. In the moments, it seemed like a long time, but I think it was fairly quick that they arrived.
Any point during the time when you tried to help Mr. O'Keefe and the first police officer arrived at any?
Hey, that's true. Well, where's the part where it says we flipped him over? She said that we flipped him over. And then where's the part where John got out of the car? Did we hear that part? Where are those parts of the tape?
Point, did you see any signs of life from Mr. O'Keefe?
No.
When the
We're
police
not
officer
getting
first
key
arrived,
parts.
do you remember what happened next?
I remember it was very chaotic, but there was talk about a spotlight. And I remember, I think I got up and ran to kind of wave the, to get the police officer's attention so he could see where we were.
No, they wouldn't
And then
stipulate
what happened?
this.
The police officer, not sure specific. I do remember him asking about John. I think he said, is he a drug user? He was just asking some basic questions.
And what's the environment? What's going on?
She's looking guilty, folks. Look at her face. Does she look like a man that she loved? She's describing coming across his dead body, where she said he was dead at the time.
Around you?
Not credible.
Karen's just running around crazy,
Apparently not.
just yelling, screaming, kind of like a ping pong.
What are you trying to do?
I was just trying to talk to the officer. I guess I just went into this type of mode of, all right, I have to just talk to him, get the information out, figure out how we can best help John and what happened to him and try to save him ultimately.
And what happens next?
More officers begin.
She just seems really subdued, really guarded and cautious in how she's coming across, because she knows that she's coming across so bad. Tia's saying that sounds much faster, too fast for me to understand this time.
Begin to come, fire and EMT. So the scene becomes active with a lot of different presence.
Clayton, I didn't hear that. Anybody else hear it? I sure didn't hear that in that jarbled, fast-moving tape.
John, I think they lift John onto a board at one point. The officers are asking us questions. Karen's kind of coming over, talking to the questions, and then kind of just running away. And then she just runs back over. She's doing a lot of screaming, a lot of repetitive, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead?
I mean, it sounds like she's annoyed with her saying, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" She's annoyed with that. Everything about Jen being frantic, she acts annoyed. Like, I know he's dead. I don't need to hear it. And you remind me. That's like her attitude about it.
You know, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Kerry, I think, Kerry's off kind of making phone calls, I believe, to John's family.
Look at
Do
it, the way
you
she's
know what
moving her
time
lips.
The first
Look at her
responders
tongue.
lifted John from
Trying
the
to moisten her
ground and put him
lips.
on that bed.
Lips are getting pretty dry when you're talking about stuff that isn't coming out the right way.
I don't know a time, but it was
Okay, that's the only question.
okay.
Um, you heard your 911 call. Do you know the time of that 911 call?
Not off the top of my head, no.
At some point, did you
Look, see, she's squinting her eyes here. Let me back that up.
heard your 911 call? Do you know the time of that 911 call?
Not off the top of my head, no.
See,
At some point, did
squeezing her
you
eyes towards the end there.
talk to a number
She's
of
not
different
comfortable
people at the
answering
scene?
that.
Yes.
And who were you talking to?
The first officer was Officer Sarah. I know I spoke with him. I spoke with an Officer Lank, an Officer Good. There were other officers. I don't remember their names. There were EMTs. I don't remember their names either.
Any school, you're talking about a Catholic church and molesting boys, cover up included parents. I mean, all these scandals, they have tons of people involved in them, okay? Where people are covering up the leaders. I mean, that happens not just in that church, it happens in many organizations where they have access to children, where it's a scout camp or some other type of church or some other type of school and stuff like that. I mean, there's predators all over the place. And you can't believe the way people that you would think would stand up and blow the whistle, they just don't do anything. They don't do anything about it. So
You have lived in this area for a long time,
Yes.
active in the community.
Yes.
Did you know Sergeant Good from before that night?
I knew of him. I didn't know him personally.
Did you know Detective Lank?
Yes, I knew him.
How did you know him?
We were friendly.
Did children ever associate with each other?
Not until recently.
After you had a chance to speak to some of the officers, did you move around at all yourself?
look at her blink rate. She's looking very nervous.
I kind of, the officers would talk to us here and then a little bit over to the side. I tried to comfort Miss Reed. At one point, Miss Reed was very upset. And one of the officers thought it would be best if maybe she went.
Well, she's trying to comfort Miss Reed. Why isn't she upset? How come she's saying Karen's the only one that was upset? Isn't there something wrong with that? That you're, again, criticizing someone that is hysterical and upset about it, and you're just like, yeah. It's like you found some roadkill on the side of the road, and you're just trying to have the cops show up to, kill a deer that's injured but not totally dead yet. You need the cops to show up and take care of it. So I mean, it's not a big deal to her to have somebody show up and respond to John's situation.
Went and just sat in one of the cruisers for a little bit because she was just doing a lot of screaming and yelling, and I think they were just trying to, get, work on John and make the scene a little less chaotic. So I went into the back of the car with her, and Kerry Roberts came over, and then we all were just sat in the back of the. Karen and I kind of were scrunched and sitting in the back, and Kerry was at the door of the cruiser.
Why did you get in the car with the defendant?
She was crying. She asked me to get in. We held hands. We prayed. She did have blood on her hands, and she said, could I have gotten my period? Who's going to take care of the kids? She just kind of was all over the place. And then at one point, we saw them moving John towards the ambulance. And at that point, Miss Reed started yelling to Miss Roberts, "Go check on him. Are they working on him? Is he dead? Is he dead?" And
So this day they have off tomorrow to go over testimony, but it comes out that she really doesn't do any prep with the prosecution, which I don't believe for a second. She basically made it sound like she looked at some videos and there wasn't really any preparation involved for her testimony. I guarantee you there's a lot of prep that Hank did with her. So I don't believe she's telling the truth on this at all. And so I think that she's already locked into her direct. So I think this is actually an advantage for the defense to really hone in on what they want to fine tune on a cross examination. So I'm not worried about it from a defense perspective. And it gives an extra day for her to fester and brood over how bad she's looking and how she can try to salvage her credibility here, which is completely tanked.
And at that point, myself and Miss Reed got out of the car, and she started yelling and pulling on me to Google hypothermia and Google how long it takes for somebody, to die in the cold.
When the defendant first asked you to Google an inquiry about hypothermia, were you still inside the police cruiser or were you outside?
Outside.
What was the weather? I know it's an obvious question, but how cold was it?
It was very cold, windy. The snow was blowing. As I stated, I have multiple sclerosis. So when I'm out in either extremely hot or cold temperatures, I lose the feeling and sensation in my fingers, which obviously made the Googling very hard for me to do because of my, motor skills.
I mean, if you're sitting on the jury, almost like if we're on the jury, wouldn't you want to be like, why didn't you call the cops and say, man down, officer down? Hurry, send an ambulance. John O'Keefe, Boston police officer. We think he's dead. None of that. I would think the jury's just wanting to like shake her and say, wake. What are you saying? This is like absolutely so crazy the way you're talking about this not being a big deal. You're not crying. You say they love the guy. I mean, this should get the jury mad at her the way she's coming across and just playing this off as no big deal.
So when you were outside of the car with the defendant and she had asked you to do a search regarding hypothermia, did you try to do that?
Yes, I did.
Do you know the exact time from your memory? Not from reading or learning, but from your memory. Do you remember the exact time you did that?
No.
Was it after the police came that morning?
Yes.
Had you ever attempted to search about hypothermia any time before that moment, that morning?
No.
Or that day?
No.
That week?
No.
Was this the first time that morning after the defendant asked you to search that you searched that phrase?
Yes, it was.
And did you complete your search and get a result?
So I don't know what came up because I think as I entered it, I think I misspelled things. And so then I think I tried a second search. And again, I don't think I even paid attention to what came up because we were already on to the next thing. Karen was already moving and screaming about, the next thing to Kerry. Are they working on him? Is he dead?
Did the defendant move somewhere from the point when she first asked you to try to Google about hypothermia to something else?
She was next to me and then I think she took off. Like she kept kind of running off.
And what did you do?
Yeah, you if anything, you overstate it. If someone you love, you overstate it. You tell them every kind of significant detail. And if you got somebody that's like a police officer, that is a most alarming thing you could say is like you got a police officer down. I mean, can you think of anything else to get the cops and ambulance and fire personnel there, the paramedics, EMS, EMT folks there? If you're saying a cop is down, I mean, it's like all hands on deck. The whole police force would show up. But no, she doesn't want that to happen.
I believe as they were I think I stood there, I believe as they were putting John into the ambulance, I went back kind of to the original spot where we had been talking to the police. And at that point, a new officer might have come because I remember talking to multiple officers there.
At some point, did you go back towards the area?
She's not looking at the jury as much now, is she? This is a very touchy subject. This is a part where she's not comfortable looking at the jury because she knows she's not coming across good at all. She knows she can't pull off this desperation to get help for John because she's just not credible. She just didn't act credible at the time of the 911 call, and she cannot cover for it now and make up for it. I think I've seen these guys before, and I think I'd seen that they were talking about the investigation, how botched it was, and so yeah, they did good from what I saw. All right, so now I want to jump ahead.
Area of Miss Roberts' car?
Yes, that's where I'm referring to. Sorry.
I want to jump ahead to they showed then the some of the tape here, and that's where it said that she didn't go in the house till like 6:39. So that whole time, a half hour, just sitting in the car, not concerned about anything. And she never says on that one call, oh, by the way, this is in the front yard of my brother-in-law, Boston Police Detective Albert. Send help. We don't know if they're murdered in the house too. I mean, she could have really made this dramatic and get all these folks to show up, and she never did. It was not a big deal. All right, here we go.
Good morning, Ms. McCabe.
Good morning.
When was the last time you spoke with Carrie Roberts before your
So
testimony?
just to
today?
clarify, my email is for this channel. You can send it to jury trial mentor, mentor at gmail.com. So if there's some particular section of this clip you want me to play, and it doesn't have to be this one. If you just show me the exact timestamp, if you can do the timestamp on it where I hit play, it automatically plays that section. I can cover that as well. Otherwise, I'm going to jump around here some, and we'll go from there.
She called me last night.
What did y'all discuss?
Ask about
She
Carrie
asked
Roberts.
if my daughters were going to be staying home from school today because her daughter would possibly join them.
Did you discuss anything having to do with your testimony?
Not my testimony, no.
Did you discuss anything in that conversation with her prior testimony?
No.
Are you aware that she testified last week?
Yes.
Did you discuss anything after that, after she testified with her about her testimony?
No.
We know that through her testimony that you had a conversation with her the morning that she testified.
Yes.
Right? Did you discuss what you anticipated to be her testimony in that conversation before she testified?
No.
Have you and Ms. Roberts ever discussed anything about either one of your testimonies, either in the last proceeding or in anticipation of this proceeding?
No.
So for the entirety of the last year, even though you both went through a proceeding last year where you both testified under oath and it was highly, highly publicized, neither one of you, your good friend Carrie Roberts and you, have ever discussed either of your testimonies between that time and this time.
No, we've discussed the case and we've discussed what happened that moment, the moments of the morning, but we have not discussed testimony.
Okay, so let's break that down for a second. I'm talking about, because the timing matters. I'm just asking at this point, if you'll bear with me, just the year from last year at a different proceeding to this year, you have discussed this case.
Yes.
With Ms. Roberts.
Many times, yes.
And you've discussed the specifics of her memory, which would be reflected in her testimony, correct?
We talked about what happened that morning.
So you were talking about what she remembers happening that morning, correct?
No, what happened that morning.
Okay, so not to put too fine a point on it, Ms. McCabe, but if you ask me what I had for dinner last night, it's my memory of what I had for dinner last night. Would you agree with that?
Sustained.
What do you have to object to something that he's just doing an analogy to help understand the question he's posing? So this is just anyway.
Talk about her perception of what happened that morning during the last year.
We've talked about what has happened, yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to break it down between you and Miss Roberts. You've discussed her perceptions and her memory of what happened, as well as, and separate and apart from, your memory and your perceptions, correct?
Correct.
So there have been circumstances in which you and Miss Roberts have compared, by definition, what she remembers versus what you remember, correct?
I wouldn't say compare.
Now let's move to well, what would you say in terms of what you've discussed and why?
I would say that we've both talked about what we've discussed, but it wasn't like a comparison. We weren't comparing anything.
You've talked about what you discussed. What does that mean? Talked about your testimony?
No, we've discussed what happened to that moment,
Right.
and in those moments. So, when I got a phone call, and that's my story. I got a phone call in the morning, and then Carrie can say, yeah, I got a phone call as well.
As you said, that's your story, correct?
Not my story. It's
Those
the
were
truth.
yours.
It's the truth.
Okay. So for instance, when you got a phone call at 4:53 in the morning,
All this looking at the jury is not a good thing to do unless you're like a professional witness, like law enforcement. And they get up there and look at the jury, and they're used to somebody off the street, and she's like projecting this big soccer mom, all-American mom type image from day one, and constantly looking at the jury. It just looks so coached. And why would you be so coached? Because the prosecutor knows he's got a lot of damage control with you. That's why.
Carrie Roberts wasn't there, correct?
Correct.
But you've discussed that with her.
Correct.
And you've told her what your perception of that, your memory of that phone call was, even though she was not recipient to and did not witness that phone call, correct?
I've told her about the phone call. Correct.
As well as many other details that she was not privy to personally, correct?
Correct.
Conversations that you've had, for instance, conversations that you claim you've had with Miss Reed, correct?
Correct.
And you've told her what your perception is of those conversations, or your memory was or is of those conversations with Miss Reed, correct?
Which conversations with Miss
Any
Reed?
conversations, just anything that she wasn't privy to. You've discussed that with her.
I mean, probably the first thing I would have done is, and I've said this before, is when she's available for me to cross, I'd be talking about her attorney in the courtroom there and how much she's been spending, paying for him to advise her, and that would be very much a great way for the jurors to see, well, if she's just somebody that happened to be a pretty much a spectator to all this, had no involvement, why is she hiring an attorney? And then you find out she lied to the FBI. That's going to even make it more sink in that, yeah, this woman is seriously really realizing that the feds could be coming after her.
Some things, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And conversely, Ms. McCabe, obviously, she's also discussed certain perceptions and memories that she has about this case, and the facts of this case, as she recalls them, that you were not necessarily privy to, correct?
Yes.
Things that may have taken place outside your presence, correct?
Correct.
And you've talked about things, I'm sorry, she's talked to you about things, now I'm getting myself confused.
I guarantee you people on the jury are looking at this stuff. Not all of them, but I'd say more likely the younger they are, the more likely they are to look at the stuff and do their own search. I know people that have done it, and they tell me that they do it, that have been on jurors before. So just I just think that that's just human nature. So they're not gonna fess up either. So unless somebody reports them as talking about it or looking at it, we'll never know for
Y'all
sure.
have talked about things that were outside of her perception and outside of your perception, and you've shared those with each other.
We've shared our experiences. We've become very close. We both lived through a traumatic experience.
How many times would you say you and Miss Roberts have discussed
Traumatic experience. They both lived through a traumatic experience. Where was the traumatic response from you and Carrie? You're just basically talking about Karen being so whacked out crazy the way she responds to a death. Very cold and calculating the way she's coming across.
your individual perceptions of what you remember happening on the 28th or the 29th of January 2022? How many times?
It would be hard to put a number on that we talk about. It's hard. We're bonded. We talk about the trauma that we relive every day. Karen called us for help, and we both.
This is true. Dusty Blue is saying she looks at the jury constantly. It's so cringe coached. That's a good way to say it. Not a good natural vibe. Yeah, this is, if the jury has any experience in how the world works and how to find people credible or not, then they're easily picking up on this.
Answered the phone.
And that bonding is
Even
the
Ronnie
glue
said it
that
creeped
holds
out
you
first
together.
three.
Is this case correct?
Yes.
So that probably, by definition, is the foundation of many of your conversations. Do you agree?
We've grown into friends where we talk about many other things
Sure.
besides the case.
Sure, the movie you saw last weekend and what the kids are doing next week.
Yes, and yes, absolutely. We
Okay,
talk
so-
many different things, just like girlfriends do.
I'm just concerned with and asking you about the subject matter of this case and the details and the facts of this case. You two have probably talked hundreds of times, that's fair to say, about your individual perceptions, your respective perceptions of this case, correct?
This happened 3 years ago, and we've talked about it time and time again.
I'd already covered this clip of Brennan looking at the judge and shaking his head while crossing Dr. Wall. I already covered that. I think it was last night in the beginning of the show.
Case has traumatized us, so
And
it's a
talking
huge part
about-
of our lives.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, it's. I'm sorry. I believe it just. I meant traumatized.
Why is that always on the
Our lives.
defense? Why don't I
Okay.
hear that with the prosecution?
It would be
The
impossible
sirens.
for you two to have had so many conversations about your respective perceptions of the details of that day without that influencing the other person, correct? You've somehow been influenced by Miss Roberts's perceptions and her memories, correct?
I don't think I would say influenced.
Would you say that she's been influenced by your perceptions and your memories?
Objection.
Would you say that, Ms. McCabe?
No, I wouldn't.
Next question.
How many times
There's
have
a
you
judge-
met?
There's a judge that, it's just sort of like the judge making that comment, letting the Jen know that the judge has sort of got your back and she's going to protect you on this. It comes up more later.
With anybody from the DA's office, and I'm just going to limit the time frame right now in anticipation of your appearance. And
That's a good point here. G. Lander saying, wouldn't the 911 operator asking Jen if he was a drug user prompt a guttural response say, no way, because he's a cop? Yeah, that's a great point.
this trial, yesterday and today,
I'd say roughly 4 or 5.
can you give me a time frame when those 4 or 5 meetings were?
I don't have dates. I do remember at one point I met with Mr. Brennan. He was new to the case. So I went in and he introduced himself.
How long ago was that? Weeks or months?
I can't give you a time.
I think they know had some of them on the jury should hopefully be able to figure out it's the FBI, because a couple times, like I say, the word agent came out, and that's pretty much exclusively normally for the federal law enforcement types as opposed to the state. You don't have agents working for county sheriffs or police departments, so you might have it with maybe like the state bureaus of investigation, but those are pretty much for the most part always federal.
Time frame. I'm sorry.
Do you think it was last summer?
No,
Do you think it was?
no, it was more recent.
Okay.
Yeah,
It wasn't
sorry.
in the fall of last year.
No,
It was in 2025 sometime?
I believe so. Yes.
You think it might have been February, January?
Again, I can't give you an exact. I'm sorry.
All right. I want to talk about the time frames of those conversations, then I'll ask you a little bit more about those conversations. So that was the first meeting that you had was with Mr. Brennan in anticipation of your testimony. What were the subsequent 4 meetings or so that you've had? With whom and approximately what time?
Okay, so another meeting with Mr. Brennan. Are you looking for who was?
Sure.
there.
Who
All
else
right.
was there?
I mean, can I give you a general answer? I didn't write down like every meeting who was there,
Of
but
course.
generally, okay.
Was Mr. Lally there?
During one or two of the meetings, he was, yes.
Was Ms. McLaughlin there?
Yes.
Was there anybody else from the DA's office there?
The officer or trooper Tully was there at one. Trooper Buchanan was there at one. The witness advocates were there. And again, give or take the particular meeting.
Those are two meetings that you've talked about with Mr. Brennan and others. What about the third meeting?
Well, she's really doing a lot of stuff with her tongue and lips. Really strange. I've never seen that before on a case.
No, I'm sorry. I was lumping a few of them together.
Sure,
I
understood.
apologize.
How many meetings would you have? Let's just start there. How many meetings have you had with Mr. Brennan and either staff or colleagues?
So after the first initial meeting, I
Right.
would say, again, I didn't write them down off the top of my head. I can think of two or three more after that.
Okay.
Excuse me, first initial one.
So that's either 4 or 5 meetings with Mr. Brennan and some combination of his colleagues, Mr. Lally, Ms. McLaughlin, perhaps, Mr. Nelson, perhaps,
Yes.
the other employees.
I'm telling you, any experienced seasoned trial attorney will talk to their witnesses, especially a key witness like Jen McCabe, who's the main point is damage control. And so this is something that she was coached to do. I don't think it's something natural. And most people are not comfortable looking at jurors, especially when you got 18 of them sitting over to your left. So this has totally been coached. And if it's not coached, then they're really not good attorneys. So I just think this is a sign of desperation from the prosecution.
Of the DA's office and Troopers Buchanan and Trooper Tully.
Correct.
Were you asked questions about at any of these meetings? I'm just going to lump them all together. Any of
Okay.
these 5 meetings. By the way, when was most recent?
Last night, I had a Zoom call in regards, I think the court asked them to,
Yes,
This is
I'm
good.
going
Yeah,
to stop you right there.
oh, okay,
I'm going to ask a different question, and if you don't
Okay.
mind, I'm just going to lead you through this question.
okay. In regards,
And Troopers Buchanan and Trooper Tully.
correct.
Were you asked questions about at any of these meetings? I'm just going to lump them all together. Any of
Okay.
these 5 meetings. By the way, when was most recent?
All right,
Last night, I had a Zoom call in regards, I think the court asked them to,
Yes, I'm going
Yeah,
to
I-
stop you right there.
oh, okay.
I'm going to ask a different question, and if you don't
Okay.
mind, I'm just
I remember hearing that it came out that the court security had something to do with court security. Like, you need court security to come to court because you have that many people angry at you in the local area there. So that's what I heard today. I could have sworn. So I don't know why I'm not hearing that now.
going to lead you through this question.
Okay,
You had a conversation last night. I'm not interested in that particular conversation. That
Okay.
was for a very specific purpose. I'm asking you about everything leading up to, but not including last night's conversation. Okay.
okay.
So let's just leave that one out. You've had, I think you mentioned either 4 or 5 other meetings with Mr. Brennan and some combination of his colleagues and or law enforcement.
Yeah, and I might have, in the 5, included that one from last night.
Okay. Fair enough.
True.
Were you asked questions in those?
Just saying, oh, I think jurors check social media during jury service and they just don't talk about it, especially on a high profile case like this. Yeah, I think that's what most of them are doing.
We're just going to call them 4 meetings. Were you asked questions during those 4 meetings about your testimony at the first proceeding last year?
I reviewed I did review some of my testimony, yes.
In what format?
I
Paper
watched.
transcript, or do
No, we just watched a little bit of it.
you watch your direct examination?
A little bit, yes.
Did you watch your cross-examination?
A little, yes.
Who cross-examined
Just a little bit? Really? How much is a little?
you?
You did,
That was me.
yes.
And did you watch the redirect or any part of it?
No,
Did you watch any part of any subsequent version of recross or additional questions that you were asked?
I don't believe so, no.
Was there a specific area that Mr. Brennan asked you to look at and review in terms of your direct or your cross-examination?
No,
Did you watch the entirety of the direct examination and the entirety of the cross-examination?
I do not believe so, no.
Were you questioned by Mr. Brennan following your review?
So she doesn't believe so. I mean, you would be fully prepared. This is somebody you love. This is somebody you want to have your memory locked and loaded, ready to go. You want to make sure you're not missing a beat on anything. Every little detail is important, and you don't want to have the defense counsel trip you up. And you want to know what you said. You want to make sure your memory didn't slip at all. So now she's acting like, no, I didn't really look at anything. No, I didn't need really any preparation. So this is just not credible to me.
Of that direct and cross-examination?
No.
So he didn't ask you any questions about any of your answers?
I don't, he showed me a dash cam and would ask me to point out who's this, who's that, a waterfall video, is this you, is this somebody? Those were the type of questions that he asked me.
What about any discussion about your demeanor and how you performed in the last proceeding? Objection.
Sustained.
Oh, wow. This is total legitimate question. Her demeanor is critical, and that's what Brennan's trying to keep out. So questions about, I'm writing this one down, okay, because this is going to come up later. This judge, everything a witness does with a prosecutor, everything they're coached on, anything they're told, how to act, how to turn to the jury when not to, anything that they're instructed on is relevant in cross-examination. But because Brennan knows this makes him look bad, he's objecting, and guess what? The judge is right there to rubber stamp it. But what do you expect out of this courtroom here? Every day, the judicial code is violated by this judge. Intentionally, I might add. You're telling me the judge doesn't know she's supposed to allow this kind of questioning? So why is she covering for the prosecutor?
I'll ask it a different way. What about your demeanor? I'm using probably a poor word, perform.
Mm-hmm.
How you came across, your demeanor in the last proceeding. Objection.
Sustained.
Did you discuss changing your demeanor in any way, shape, form, or fashion from the last trial the last proceeding to this trial? My mistake.
Yeah, do you remember how feisty she got with him? She's really being low key this time so far. She was so in his face.
The last proceeding to this trial, was your demeanor ever discussed?
No, I was just told to slow down, answer the question, and, answer it to the best of my memory.
Was there any discussion about?
I guarantee you they went over the 911 call, how to like cover that.
Talking about your background, for instance, your family and your children, and being a sports mom, as you talked about in your direct examination.
No, I believe I did that in the previous one as well.
Was there any discussion about crafting your testimony in any way to suggest a softer approach?
Yeah, it is like an Amber Heard type approach. And here he is asking her about the softer approach.
No.
Was there any discussion about
Blinking a lot. Red alert here, red alert.
how to develop your testimony?
Why isn't she looking at the jury when these really critical type questions are coming out on her motives and credibility here?
From beginning to end.
Sustained.
Did Mr. Brennan ask you?
Let me back that up.
Was there any discussion about crafting your testimony in any way to suggest a softer approach?
No.
Was there any discussion about?
Well, see, and that's something that I think that she's thinking she can outslick him on, is because is there any discussion on a softer approach? Well, she's thinking in her mind, unless Hank told me I have to come across softer, to use the word softer, then in her mind, she can say, no, I didn't do that. So you got to like cover this a lot of different ways. So there's no escaping by not using the right word.
How to develop your testimony from beginning to end.
Sustained.
Well, guess what? If Hank is objecting, because if she could say no, then, hey, that makes her look more credible. But Hank is objecting because he knows this is what he was doing. So you're over the target when the prosecutor objects to how he was coaching her. And what do you got? Another judge in the pocket of the prosecutor.
Did Mr. Brennan ask you about, or let me ask it a different way. Did Mr. Brennan take you through a series of questions, for instance, as almost a test run of questions that you might be asked either on direct examination or cross-examination?
No,
Did you practice your testimony with any member of the DA's office?
no,
Were there any sessions where you sat and was subjected to
Okay, practice your testimony with anybody in the DA's office. So what does it mean by practice? I mean, I think you really got to nitty gritty. Do they ever tell you a list of questions they're going to ask or areas of questioning they're going to ask? So some of this, with a witness like her, you really got to nail it down where you don't have these kind of word usage issues that a witness like her can slip through.
cross-examination, like a fake cross-examination or a fake direct examination?
no, there
Anything
wasn't.
like that?
Okay, a fake cross-examination, a fake, by using the word fake, see that she can slip out of that one, because what's fake mean? Fake means, well, it's not real type of questioning. In other words, questions that are not going to be relevant to the trial, they're fake, or you're not going to really be asked them. No, that's the way somebody like her could think, I can slip out of it because no, it's not fake. If you would have said, did they rehearse any questions and answers you're going to ask, or did they rehearse anything that was acting like a defense counsel? Did they pose as a defense counsel with their questions and tell you how to respond in any way?
No,
What were the
See?
things that stand out in your mind? You said you had at least 4 meetings. How long was each meeting, by the way, ish?
the first meeting I think was fairly quick. It was just the introduction.
30 minutes, less than 30 minutes?
I don't want to give a time because I'm not sure,
Okay.
but I was fairly quick. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, this is her life. This case is her life. She would know that.
What about the second meeting?
Again, I don't know specific meetings, but I can tell you that there was a longer one where I did watch some dash cam video, look at different pictures, things like that.
What kind of pictures did you look at other than the dash cam video?
The pictures of John's house.
Okay. The same photos that we saw today?
Yes.
How long in total would you say all of those meetings were? Just taking them all together.
I really can't give you
You know, the reason why she can't come up with any kind of timeline, how much total time it is, because then she's got to fill it in, because then you could ask her, well, what are you doing for 12 hours? If you're only seeing a few clips here and there and you're not rehearsing your testimony, what's going on for all these multiple hours? So that's why she needs to be able to say, I have no idea. I wasn't keeping track of it. But in her mind, somebody that's going into the DA's office for testifying on a murder case, and you're a star witness for the prosecution, and the defense is really going for you, you're going to be adequately prepared, and prepared over and over and over again by especially a prosecutor like Hank Brennan, who knows that you're the Achilles heel on his case.
I really can't give you an estimate. I think the first one was fairly quick. The second one, one of them was a little bit longer, maybe a couple hours.
Okay. Then the third one, was that also a couple hours, or was that one fairly quick?
That was fairly quick, yes.
Fairly quick. Why? What did you talk about?
So fair to say between 2, 3, 4 hours total meeting times?
Again, I'd have to probably go back and look at the date and the time. I really can't give you a specific amount of time.
So this is just not credible here. So
I apologize.
Did Trooper Tully or Trooper Buchanan ask you any questions during the course of any of these meetings?
Regarding the case, no, but we did briefly talk about how my kids were, how their kids were.
But they didn't ask you any questions about your testimony, about your case, about the case, about your memories, about specific facts?
I do not believe so, no.
during any of these meetings, was anybody taking notes? Ms. McLaughlin, Mr. Lally, Mr. Brennan, any of the troopers?
No, I don't believe so.
So there was several hours worth of meetings
Mhm.
with you, and nobody scribed any notes.
Yeah, LESP, you're asking. I feel like Alan Jackson being so polite and respectful, and the judge is rude to him, makes the jury thinks he's in the wrong. How would I handle the judge? I would handle the judge where I would, not in front of the jury, but I would be very aggressive, describing why this judge is wrong. When I get shut down on asking what preparation happened with the prosecutor, I'd be having a sidebar right then, and I'd just be citing case law. I'd have a copy of the case law to hand to her and the prosecutor, and I'd be having so many timeouts, sidebars as needed to make sure this judge knows, because she's trying to keep this case moving around. I'll just ask for a sidebar every time, and if she doesn't grant a sidebar, I've never seen a judge not grant a sidebar, then I would say that you don't, and I would call out the judge on her acting, all for the disrespect she's shown to the defense different times, and her bad rulings. I'd call out on her bias and do a motion for her to recuse herself in a mistrial. So anyway, I'm just that's the way I would handle it if this was my case in Texas.
That you saw,
None that I saw, no.
and these meetings were not recorded?
I do not believe so, no.
Ms. McCabe, I'm going to ask you a series of questions about your family because I just want to make sure it's crystal clear who's who. You're married to Matt McCabe, correct?
Yes,
Your sister is Nicole Albert.
yes,
Nicole is married to Brian Albert.
yes,
It was Brian Albert's home that you were at, 34 Fairview, that you arrived at, where John's body was found, correct?
yes,
The same home where that late night gathering was on January 28th, going into the morning of the 29th, correct?
yes,
Would you consider yourself to be close with your sister Nicole and Brian?
yes, very close.
Your families, it's not just you and Nicole, your whole families are close, correct?
Yes, we have a very close family.
How long have you known Brian Albert?
Since I was in kindergarten.
Okay, this is goes into all the connections she has to people in power in that town. I mean, they have like a power grid of people in connections in law enforcement, the select board, which is like, I guess, county commissioner type of thing. And so she's really entrenched there with all these connections. Everybody's friends with everybody else in her network. And so that includes Brian Albert, and even with there's connections with Agent Proctor and her family. So there's somebody that sent me a message here about Jen McCabe giving the code with the eyes. There's a part in the testimony during cross-examination where Jen moves her eyes side to side and up and down, and then she moves, and that's when Brennan started objecting. You don't remember the exact time frame. So does anybody remember where that is at?
Garden.
You consider him, even though he is not blood related to you, you consider him family.
Yes,
See, now she's
In
going back
addition
to
to
looking a
Brian
lot at
and
the
Nicole
jury.
Albert,
All
you're
those questions
also
about preparation and all
very
that.
close with Chris and Julie.
You see all the difference when all the question about dealing with Hank Brennan, she doesn't want to look at the jury much at all. And now all of a sudden she's back to like talking about family stuff. Now she's trying to put on the all-American mom persona, all-American family persona.
Julie Albert, correct?
But she's
Yes.
really nervous.
Just to be
She just, am I wrong, or does she give off a I am guilty vibe? I'm trying to like cover my tracks. Is that the vibe you guys are picking up too?
clear, and I'm going to do this slowly.
Okay.
Brian Albert's younger brother is Chris Albert, correct?
yes,
Chris Albert is married to Julie Albert.
yes,
You consider Chris and Julie family, even though there may not be a blood relation as well, correct?
yes,
Chris Albert is a Canton Select Board member, is that right?
now he is, yes.
I'm going to speed this up.
And the Canton, that's in Canton. I said select board member. Did I mention Canton select board member?
It is in Canton,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Obviously, it's in Canton. The Canton Police Department reports to the select board, correct?
I'm not aware.
You're not aware of that echelon?
No.
Okay. You're aware that Brian
I'm gonna
Albert.
jump ahead here. We don't need to hear that. Okay, there's a break here. John O'Keefe's brother got moved today. I guess he was making gestures and stuff. They wound up moving him.
Agencies. We talked about Boston Police Department, obviously, Brian Albert. We talked a little bit about Massachusetts State Police and knowing friends of friends with regard to Chris and Julie, correct?
Yeah.
Knowing friends of Chris and Julie.
Friends of friends of Chris and Julie.
Is that your relationship?
With who?
I'd ask you about. I'll ask you a different question.
Okay.
A little bit vague. Courtney Proctor is friends with Julie's sister,
Yes.
and obviously Courtney also knows Julie and Chris, correct?
Sustained.
And there's also a connection to Canton Police Department through Kevin Albert. Is that right?
Yeah.
Can you
Okay, there's a connection with Canton Police Department through this other Albert. And what do you have Hank objecting?
answer that? Is there a connection? Do you have a connection with the Canton Police Department through Kevin Albert?
Not with the police department, but Kevin Albert is Ryan Albert's brother.
Right. And Kevin.
Okay. So you do have a connection to the police department. That just shows like she's trying to minimize her testimony. That connection is somebody she could have called and say, hey, help look for John O'Keefe. It's snowing out. Help. Call 911. Can you get over there as well? We need to find out where John O'Keefe is at.
Kevin works for whom?
The Canton Police.
Thank you. So you've been interviewed many times by different law enforcement agencies, be they Massachusetts State Police, Canton Police, or otherwise, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Those interviews have not just been over the period of weeks, it's been over the period of weeks and months and even years since this occurred, correct?
Yes.
You were contacted by another law enforcement agency that was not Massachusetts State Police and not
Here's the
Canton Police
FBI.
at one point in April of 2023. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I want to talk for a second about that series of interview or that interview. You were contacted at your residence by these members of this law enforcement agency, correct?
Yes.
All right. Later that same day, you did sit down with those same law enforcement officers for a formal interview.
On that
same day that you were contacted by them, they also went into your home and actually interviewed you, correct?
yes, it was brief.
All right. Those law enforcement officers identified themselves as being associated with an agency that is not Massachusetts State Police. You understood that.
Yes.
And you understood that they were not involved with Canton Police Department either, correct?
Correct.
Completely separate agency. Is that right?
Yes.
During the course of that interview, those officers informed you very specifically, Ms. McCabe, that it is a crime to lie to them, even during an interview, correct?
Yes.
Those law enforcement officers informed you that they were.
It's a felony because she denied who she was. And I think what happened is they probably said, do you realize it's a felony to lie to a federal agent? And they showed their badges again.
Investigating certain circumstances attendant to John O'Keefe's death, correct?
They were very vague on what they were.
Understood.
I don't know what they were investigating.
But you did understand that it was having something to do with your involvement at 34 Fairview on January 28th, 29th, 2022.
Objection.
As a witness or otherwise?
Objection.
Sustained as to certain terminology.
Sure. Let me see if I can rephrase that, Ms. McCabe.
Have you ever seen a small town riddled with such crime and emergencies as Denham there? This is really bizarre. And only during defense questioning.
Were aware of the subject matter of their interview, right? They weren't interviewing about a car you bought last year, correct?
Correct.
They were interviewing you basically about what you're testifying to here, correct?
When I first spoke with them, the conversation was pretty vague.
But the subject matter, vague or specific, was about this subject matter.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. They first contacted you telephonically, called you on the phone. Is that right?
Actually, they walked up to my car.
They walked up to your car.
Yes.
Okay, that was
Yeah, Vinay, when Canoni takes Jackson's question and re-asks him, she takes a punch out of them and renders Jackson's defense work into cutting him off at the knees. It's so wrong. It is so wrong. It happens over and over again every day. It's so disgusting to see that happen.
the very first introduction, correct?
Yes.
At that point, they had not identified themselves, correct?
They didn't know.
All right. And at that point, you told them that you were not Jennifer McCabe. They asked you who you were.
Why is she doing that big smile? That's just so weird. It's just doesn't come across as genuine.
You said, I'm Nicole.
I thought they were like selling something. So I was like, oh, no, I'm not the homeowner.
Fair enough. Fair enough. However, after they said,
Yeah, so they're going to be FBI agents are going to be dressed like salesmen. Not coming across very credible on that either.
after you said, I'm not Jennifer McCabe,
Mhm.
you walked into the house, they then called you on the phone.
Yes.
They were
Correct.
still sitting outside your house.
I don't know where they were, but they did call me.
They were close by.
I'm not aware.
Well, the call came almost immediately after you walked back in the house, correct?
I'm not sure how much time had passed.
Give me an idea. It wasn't an hour. It was
No, it was
5 to 10
soon
minutes.
after. I'm just not sure. I can't tell you where they were located. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, Cassie is asking, could Alan Jackson display a chart of all the family and friends connections display as an exhibit since it's technically been stated and corroborated by Jen and Carl? You should be able to do that with this judge. She probably doesn't want that to happen because it shows that these people, it reminds people how connected they are, but it really helped keep a lot of these names organized in their head. And you also should have more like maps showing where everything's at and where they drove to that night. Have them big blown up on the on some kind of easel or some kind of overhead projector or something.
They told you that they would, at that point, they identified themselves as being law enforcement agents, correct?
When they called me, yes.
And they told you at that time that they were not with Canton Police. You knew at least they were not with Canton Police Department. They were not troopers with Massachusetts State Police, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And they told you that
If the jury can't figure out from this line of questioning that they're not state, they're not local law enforcement, what else would it be? The feds? So they hopefully are able to pick up on that.
they would like to have an interview with you. They'd like to have a sit down talk with you, correct?
Yes.
You told them that you would be willing to submit to an interview, but you needed about 10 minutes to get ready, correct?
Yes.
You ultimately did allow them into your home and you did sit down for a formal interview with them, correct?
Yes. Brief, but yes.
And it was during that formal interview inside the home that it was explained to you that it would be a crime for you to lie to them on any material issue, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true too. Real picture.
During the course of your interview, your husband, Matt McCabe, came home. Is that right?
Yes.
As these law enforcement agents continue to question you, as law enforcement officers continue to question you at some point, you inform them that you did not feel comfortable with any further questioning and you suspended the interview, correct?
Yes.
All right, let's back that up.
Before leaving, however, those same law enforcement officers asked you if you had contacted anyone in those 10 minutes when you indicated, I need 10 minutes to get ready, between the time they called you and the time that they showed up and came inside your house, correct?
Yes.
You told them that you had contacted your husband, Matt McCabe,
Yes.
which is why he came home, right?
Yes.
And you told them that you had called Carrie Roberts before they interviewed you, correct? At that
Right here. She's freaking out. Federal agents show up to her house. She's freaking out. She's calling up numerous people on speed dial here, telling Matt, you better rush here now. That's what she does when she tells him she needs 10 minutes to get prepared.
moment,
I'm not 100% sure, but if you have it, I'll.
Oh, really? She not see, look at it. As soon as she starts doing her hand movement, hand behind the back, that's a sign that she's really really much uncomfortable, and she's trying to figure out, how do I come across natural covering for Carrie, and my discussions, probably nearly daily discussions on this case.
Can we
It's
join?
not, it seems like something I would do, but if you have it, could show me.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that would be a freak out moment. You would not have any lapse of memory whatsoever. The FBI showing up to your house, you would have vivid recall of everything that happened, no doubt.
I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Fast forward here.
Direct your attention, if I may, and for court and counsel, page 3 of 4, starting with the second to the last full paragraph, going into page 5, top full. I'm sorry, page 4, top full paragraph.
Okay.
If you could review those 2 paragraphs, read them to yourself, and then look up and let me know when you're finished.
They're not allowed to mention the FBI or feds or anything. That's why this judge is put a stranglehold on the defense, because if they mention that ARCA was hired by the federal government, automatically they're golden with their credibility, and that's why Hank is doing everything he can to keep them out from testifying. So that's why they can't just mention FBI agents showed up to her house and did all this effort to ask her about this case. That's a good point. Yeah, I would have really going after on this thing with the FBI. I don't think they're doing any wiretapping on them. They have to have more of a connections to ongoing crime. So I doubt they have that at this point.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McCabe.
Yes.
Did reviewing those paragraphs refresh your recollection as to what you told those agents initially? I'm sorry, what you told those officers initially from that other law enforcement agency, that about who you contacted in that 10-minute interval?
Yes, I told them.
And you told them that you had contacted your husband, Matt McCabe,
Yes,
and Carrie Roberts.
correct.
I want to stick with that for just a quick second. One of the first calls you made after being contacted by these other law enforcement officers from a different agency, one of the first calls you made was to Carrie Roberts. Is that right?
She was the first one.
That's what I'm asking. One of the first 2 calls you made, your husband,
Right.
come home, there's law enforcement outside my door, I'm guessing is what you said, correct?
I don't remember my exact words now, but I did ask him to come home. Correct.
And
Yes.
Carrie Roberts.
Okay. Yes.
You wanted to let Ms. Roberts know that you had been contacted by certain officers from a different agency, correct?
I was curious if they had already been to her.
That was my next
Oh,
question.
yeah.
You also wanted to find out had these law enforcement officers from this different agency contacted her, correct?
Yes, because typically if
I
you
just
enter
asked
our
yes or no.
town, she's.
Ms. McCabe, yes or no?
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to.
She's really trying to get the jury to like her and believe her now. She's really desperate and nervous. Yes.
That's okay.
Explain. I'm sorry.
Is that why you contacted her, to find out if in fact they had contacted her before you? Yes or no?
Yes.
And you also wanted to find out what she told them, if she had been contacted.
Of course
by
she
them,
did.
right?
That's
That
what
was
she
your
told them.
motive in calling her.
No.
Of course she did. That's why she wanted to know, hey, what did they want to ask you? And she's probably freaking out. Why didn't you tell me that they're coming over to see me and that they first saw you? So she's wants to compare notes. That's the whole purpose. So she says no, that's not what she wanted to find out.
So you just wanted to find out, had she been contacted?
Yes.
But if she had said yes, you weren't going to say, and what the hell did they say? What did they ask you?
Well, I can't say what I would have
Oh, come on. Really?
what I would have asked her, but I know I was calling to see if they had been there. Yes,
That
is
was your
correct.
that was your intent.
I called to ask her if they had been there. Yes.
So that was your intent. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Your motive in calling Carrie Roberts at that moment before your interview was to ensure that your story would line up with her story.
Tatted, you're asking, you just read somewhere that AJ is very limited what he can ask Jen because none of the police reports have come into evidence yet. That's why you can't impeach her very much. Is that true? Well, the way it works is that reports just don't automatically come in. Like police reports are not admitted automatically during a criminal trial. I think the public has that perception. Well, the police and lead detective and all of the supporting documentation automatically just gets trucked into the courtroom and they hand it all over to the jury and then they decide whether it's credible or not and whether the elements of the crime are proven or not. It doesn't work that way. Basically, the trial process works where all the background legwork that the officer did, that is testified to, and they just don't funnel the documents in and leave it where it's more of a paper case versus a testimonial type of presentation. So it's more testimonial unless there's something like, like a lab test that's done or a blood test, something that's scientific like that. Usually it's all that kind of lead work. But now you can cross-examine the officer on different aspects of the investigation. You got, as defense counsel, for example, you have a whole copy of the police report file, whatever agency's working it. And based on what they wrote down, you can cross-examine different witnesses. Isn't it true you told Detective so-and-such? Those kind of questions would be asked of a witness. But so no, that's I would say though that because it's not been set up with the agents testifying yet, the state police troopers and the Canton Police Department folks. So there is somewhat less of a question you can ask her. But even if they had laid the framework by having all the law enforcement testified first, this judge is very much running a tightly controlled operation where she doesn't allow a lot of reach back type questions to impeach prosecution witnesses. So I don't know that it would even matter in a case like this where you denied so many normal things you'd see in a trial.
Ms. McCabe, isn't that right?
No, that is not.
You wanted to find out if she had talked to these particular law enforcement officers and what she had told them so that your story could somehow align or it could inform how you responded to questions that they asked you. Isn't that true?
That's not true. We both know what happened. We don't have to have a story.
Oh, really? Then why would you need to call her? If you're trying to help justice for John O'Keefe, why would you need to call her up? A natural opinion on this would be is like you're calling to get your story straight.
There is no story. There's what happened, and that's it.
So if that's true, Ms. McCabe,
Mhm.
you have no reason to call Carrie and ask her if she'd been contacted by these law enforcement agents because it's just the truth, correct?
We're going through this whole experience together. We call each other about everything.
There would
That's
be no
nothing
reason
more
to
than
ask.
that.
So
I'm sorry.
Let her finish her answer. Go ahead, Ms. McCabe.
I just the thing I'm wondering if the jury's picking up on is like, do you think that really the friendship is really truly genuine and going to last through this trial, or is Jen just friends with Carrie to make it through this trial. When the trial's over with, then we're going to see the real level of friendship. I just don't trust this level of friendship that she's making it sound like this is her battle buddy. This is a friend for life kind of thing. I just don't buy it for a second.
Dave, you can finish that.
There's nothing more than me calling and saying, hey, did they come to your house? That's what we did when the media showed up, when Miss Reed's private investigator showed up. We just give each other the heads up, hey, somebody's coming, because we're just like normal moms. We're not used to this.
And that's
So I think this is good for the defense. You know, the defense is now showing the FBI is showing up to her house, media is showing up to her house. She's got a lot of stuff going on here that needs to be answered, and a lot of people are suspicious of her testimony on this case. And the jury, you better wake up too and realize this is really critical information. If you just gloss over this testimony of Jen McCabe, you're really out to lunch.
helpful in making sure that the stories she tells are consistent with the stories you tell to different law enforcement agencies, correct?
No, we are
AJ, you got to get your voice booming more. We can barely hear you.
not telling stories.
So let her finish. You said no what?
I said, no, we're not telling stories. We don't have to compare.
And if in fact, what we were telling
I mean, that somebody says that, well, this conspiracies among 10 people don't happen. Here, she's calling multiple people right off the bat as soon as the FBI shows up to her house. So you think she's not trying to circle the wagons on this kind of story?
is just the truth, there would be no reason for you to inquire about who's contacted her when. There'd be no reason.
There's no inquiring. It's like when when the ice cream truck was at the street next door and I'm saying, did the ice cream truck come? It's really that simple.
So you asked a question,
That was on the ice cream truck.
an argumentative question, and she responded in kind. Next question.
Thank you.
Oh, that's such a low chop. That's such a low, unprofessional comment for a judge to make to this attorney, Jackson. This is just despicable. Argumentative question. Let's go back and listen to this.
About who's contacted her when.
Let's go back up here.
No, we are not telling stories.
So let her finish. You said no what?
I said, no, we're not telling stories. We don't have to compare.
Look at telling Jackson, no, let her finish. This is she's trying to do damage control. The judge is trying to do damage control for this witness as well as Brennan.
And if in fact, what we were telling you is just the truth, there would be no reason for you to inquire about who's contacted her when. There'd be no reason.
He's stressing that there's no reason for you to contact her if you're telling the truth. And look what she says. And this is where the judge has to try to save her.
There's no inquiring. It's like,
Look at her smiling. She's like, knows she's not looking good for doing this. There's no good answer that makes you look like you're innocent in this.
when when the ice cream truck was at the street next door and I'm saying, did the ice cream truck come?
That's what she compares the FBI showing up to her house to question her. This is like the ice cream truck showing up like when you're a little girl. That's what it's like deciding to call Carrie Roberts to see if the feds showed up to her house as well. Hey, what can you tell me? What do they know? Tell me what they know. If the jury doesn't get this, then they're complete zombies.
It's really that simple.
So you asked a question,
That was on the ice cream truck.
an argumentative question, and she.
What was argumentative about it? There's nothing argumentative about it. So, is this what's going on with this judge? I mean, there's something really radically wrong with her. Look at her turning her neck all the way over to look at this judge like, yes, please rescue me. Give me a lifeline.
She responded in kind. Next question.
Thank you.
This is just this is disgusting to see a judge treat the court attorneys that way, a defense counsel that way. This is what she's doing is telegraphing to the jury that don't trust these lawyers for the defense. I know they're scum. Don't listen to them. That's exactly what she's doing. She's trying to prejudice Karen Reed. She's trying to influence the jury to not like the defense team and Karen. And this is highly prejudicial. It's highly inflammatory. And it's highly unprofessional. Last night, I covered over the code of conduct for the judges in Massachusetts. And I'm going to cover that again tomorrow during the day. So sometime during the day tomorrow, we're going to go over that.
Yeah. You also testified in your direct examination, staying with Ms. Roberts for just a second, about a timeline that you and Ms. Roberts put together, correct?
Yes.
That's another example of the two of you talking about your own perceptions.
This whole thing about her not telling the truth to the FBI, this thing could have been played up. AJ could have really just blasted her with how serious this is about her lying. And so it's sort of like he didn't take advantage of a huge home run he could have knocked out of the park.
And comparing and contrasting those perceptions and putting it down on paper, correct?
No,
Yes or no?
it's a no. Can I explain or no?
I'm sure Mr. Brennan will have follow-up questions. After you gave that answer to those law enforcement
Look at that snarky look she's giving him.
officers at that separate law enforcement agency, they asked you, was there anyone else that you contacted in that 10-minute period before we got a chance to talk to you? And your answer was no, correct?
Correct.
And that was a lie, correct?
It wasn't a lie. No.
Was it true?
That's a lie right there. She's lying in front of the court right now.
Was it the truth or a lie?
It wasn't a lie.
Okay, so
There's another lie. If you say you only called 2 people when you called 4 or 5, that's a lie. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
was the truth. You had not spoken to any other person between the time they contacted you telephonically and you said, I need 10 minutes, and then they came in the door. During that arc of time, you didn't talk to anybody else or contact anybody else other than Matt McCabe, Carrie Roberts. Now you're testifying that was a true statement. Yes or no, ma'am?
I can't answer that yes or no.
It's pretty binary. Had you talked, well, let me ask you this. In point of fact, you did talk to other people. That you contacted others in addition to Matt McCabe and Carrie Roberts, correct? Yes or no?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So when you said no to the answer, did you contact anyone other than Matt and Carrie? That would be, by definition, Ms. McCabe, a lie. Correct?
No.
It's not a lie? Is there some shade of lie that I'm not aware of?
Is there some shade of lie that I'm not aware of? Says AJ.
It's the way you're asking the question. If I
Okay, let
could
me ask it a different
explain,
way.
if I could explain,
Let me ask it
it
a
will
different
make
way.
more sense to you.
You can explain how you failed to disclose other people that you left off the list, and it just happened. So your memory, what are you going to blame it on? Your memory?
The agents asked you, I'm going to go over this one more time, then I'm going to move on. The agents asked you, in fact, did you contact anyone between the time we called you and set up
I would never say going to ask you one more time. No, I'd make them think I'm not leaving this line of questioning until I get the truth out of you.
the interview in the 10 minutes before we walked in the door? They asked you that question, correct?
The objection sustained. Watch the choice of language.
I'm sorry.
Choice of
I meant the law
language?
enforcement.
Okay, let's go back here.
Over this one more time, then I'm going to move on. The agents
Okay.
asked you, in fact, Did you contact any?
You're also letting the judge know that, hey, if you and the prosecutor, if you object, then judge is going to sustain it, and you won't really be able to get anywhere. So I would never telegraph that as an attorney, especially with these kind of people as my opponents.
Anyone between the time we called you and set up the interview and the 10 minutes before we walked in the door? They asked you that question, correct?
She's looking for help. She's looking for help. Hey, help me out, Hank. Object. Bail me out.
Objection sustained. Watch the choice of language.
I'm sorry. I meant the law enforcement agency. That law enforcement agency, the members of that law enforcement agency contacted you.
Mhm.
Sorry. They asked you who you had contacted between the time they first telephoned you and walked in the door 10 minutes later, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Data point number one. Data point number two, you told them Matt and Carrie, correct?
Correct.
You had actually contacted, they then asked you, did you contact anyone else other than Matt and Carrie, correct?
Correct.
And you said no. Is that correct?
At that moment, I said no. Yes.
Correct. At that, or any moment?
No, at that moment, because they had just come in my house.
I asked you,
Only one person can talk at a time.
you said the word no.
She
correct?
was finishing.
Yeah, so what she's going to say is I corrected the lie after my husband got there. So therefore, it's not a lie. You can temporarily lie as long as you get a chance to think it over and then decide to say, oh, hey, there's 3 more people I talked to, so I don't want to be charged with a felony here. So I guess I'll tell you because I'm thinking you might have tapped my lines.
Her answer. Finish your-
I had said no because I was in a situation where there are 2 officers from a different agent had come in, were asking me questions, or they had said, can I come in and ask?
Look at this. I've never seen a witness this much on a zinger type of question on cross really get up and just try to be this big actress on stage, trying to be so convincing. She's trying so hard to try to make this jury think she's not lying. It's just having a backfiring effect on her.
Few questions. At first, I thought they were selling something. Then they identified themselves. I just dropped my kids off at school. Going to be completely honest. I hadn't brushed my teeth. So
Really? You're worried about your teeth being brushed when agents show up to your house?
I kind of made some phone
Objection, Your Honor.
calls.
This is
That's
non-responsive.
so. Next question. Mr.
Thank you. Ms. McCabe,
Mhm.
after you said
I'm glad he cut her off. This is so dramatic. But on the other hand, it's like her doing this performance is really showing how desperate she is to try to say, no, I'm really not lying. I'm really not lying.
no, that you hadn't contacted anybody else,
Mhm.
those 2 law enforcement officers from that separate agency who had told you it was a crime to lie to them, they left, correct?
Yes.
Subsequent to that, Mr. McCabe, your husband, objection.
Sustained.
They left you their card so you could call them if need be, correct?
Yes, they did.
And you, in fact, did call them back, correct?
Yes, I did.
Without telling me the content of the conversation you had, did you have a conversation with Mr. McCabe? Objection.
Sustained.
There's,
Did you call them
hold on, let's back this up.
back? You had, be correct?
Yes, they did.
And you, in fact, did call them back, correct?
Yes, I did.
Without telling me the content of the conversation you had, did you have a conversation with Mr. McCabe? Objection.
Sustained.
All right. So apparently the prosecutor doesn't want conversations between her and her husband. Spousal privilege maybe is why he's objecting. But anyway, prosecutor is very much concerned. If there's nothing bad about what they said, why don't you just let it come out? Why don't you let their reasonable course of conduct be presented to the jury, Hank? You know there's something shady about what was going on. That's why you're objecting. She could assert the spousal privilege, communication between a husband and wife, but why are you asserting it? You're not her lawyer.
Did you call them back and say, I'm calling you back because my husband told me that I lied to you and I better clear that lie up?
So sustained. Jurors, remember I told you before that
Okay, this is a line of questioning that I think is important to come out. And here is Hank trying to object. So if he doesn't want that information coming out, and he got the full question out there before the jury. So now the jury's thinking, oh, okay, so her husband talked to her. So it's already out there, but Hank's still objecting because he doesn't want that being revealed, that the husband had to tell her, hey, you can't get caught lying to the feds. You better explain that you talk to more people.
only answers to questions are evidence. Be mindful of that.
May we approach?
Next, yes.
All right, so now they got a sidebar. So I'm going to jump ahead here.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. You ultimately called these officers back, correct?
Yes.
And you explained to them that you had been untruthful with them, correct?
I explained that I had forgotten to mention a couple of people that I had reached out to.
You had forgotten. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
You had forgotten. You remembered Matt and you remembered Carrie,
Mhm.
but you had forgotten the others that you had just contacted.
She was frantically calling all these people up, and she forgets to mention them. Okay, so right here, this is the easiest lie to prove of Jen McCabe. And right there, she's nailed. She is nailed as lying so many times tonight. Look how much she's already not been telling the truth, and now this is like a whopper of a lie. So easy to say she's pretty much proven to lie over and over again. And why are you lying over and over again? Is what the defense can hit home. If she's not involved in anything, why is she lying on a repeated basis, including lying to the FBI? I mean, that's serious. You can do prison time on that.
Maybe 30 minutes before.
Yes.
There were 5 people that you contacted, weren't there?
I contacted Matt.
Let's go through them. I'm just
Yeah.
asking yes or no. You know them?
I know 4 off the top of my head.
Okay, let's go through them.
Okay.
You contacted your husband, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Carrie Roberts, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Peggy O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
Then, Ms. McCabe, you contacted the district attorney's office, correct?
My witness advocate.
The district attorney's office.
My witness advocate who works
Miss-
for the district attorney's
Thank
office.
you, Ms. McCabe.
Yes.
And you
Judge would probably hold him in contempt or something. Try to fine him thousands of dollars or something like that is my guess.
also left out that you contacted Brian Albert himself, correct?
Yes, my brother-in-law.
For some reason, your brother-in-law,
But yet she didn't call her brother-in-law or holler and knock at the door right when John O'Keefe is dead or dying in the front yard. Isn't that interesting?
who's the 30-year Boston police detective, correct?
Yes.
And on whose lawn John O'Keefe was found dead or dying. Objection.
I'll allow that.
Correct?
Yes.
For some reason, you did not want these officers to know that you had communicated specifically with Brian Albert, the homeowner, just before you talked to them, correct?
No, incorrect.
There was some reason that was important enough for you to lie about that, even though you had been admonished that it's a crime to lie about that to those officers, correct?
Incorrect. I didn't lie to them. I had forgotten who I had called.
And all of a sudden you had an epiphany right after they walked out the door?
Yes. Matt said, who have you spoken to?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it. It's out. You're not to go any further. Mr. Johnson.
Boy, this
Ms.
sounded
McCabe, I want to
great.
draw your attention to January 28th. You had gone out drinking with your family at the Waterfall Bar.
Oh my gosh. So this is like a huge thing. I was like, as I said earlier, it's like Jackson could have like just made a massive score. And the way he would have talked to her about, you lied to the FBI, and say that there was multiple others in your calls that you made in that 10 minutes. And there's no excuse for lying about it. She says, I just forgot it. And then just bring out the fact that it's not a normal thing to have agents show up to your house, of all things. They didn't call you down to a particular law enforcement agency building. They show up to your house and bring out the fact that you were freaked out because you thought they're on to you. And I was gone down a long line of questioning. And then you would have brought up the fact that how is it not a lie? She cannot explain that away and say it's not a lie. She's never explained away how it was not a lie. She says it wasn't a lie. And so he didn't do enough to zero in on that and make a big dramatic showing on the line of questioning. Yeah, this is just moving on like that. I thought he really missed a chance to really score some big points. And she sort of got away with saying, hey, it's, I didn't lie. No, I said it's 2. And then I changed it later. I called back 30 minutes later and changed it to 4 or 5 or whatever it was. So yeah, that's, I mean, she's still nailed as a liar, but I think the fireworks that could have happened with that massive lie is, at least missed her in this time. I don't know if he's going to try to come back to it later, but it's, anyway, I think, if you guys have any questions, I'm going to.
Bar and Grill, correct?
I went with my husband and met my sister. Yes.
And met the other family, correct? The other family members.
I'm going to cover some of this more, I think, tomorrow sometime. Maybe we'll cover the rest tomorrow night. And then tomorrow during the day, I'm going to cover some stuff about judicial conduct. So I'm going to take a couple questions here now. Red emojis are the best way to do it. Remember to keep the comments clean. We're trying to have a courtroom level discussion with professionalism, no vulgarity, profanity kind of stuff. Maya Rodriguez Sorensen, I've only seen someone this agitated, nervous, under questioning when they're in an interrogation room. Feels like Frida, she's not a normal soccer mom. Yeah, she is definitely coming across like a softer persona, trying to be more an all-American mom type persona. But yeah, these traps she laid for herself are definitely sinking her big time. All right, let's see here. Stevie Howell, you're saying that's exactly like the train cars in the Adelson. The FBI bumped, and then the calls going down the line. Yeah, they have that speed dial calling freaking out, just like the bump. That's a good point to make. Lafayette, thank you. Excuse me, FBI equals ice cream truck. Same Yeah, that just shows you what a stretch that is. Unbelievable. An ice cream truck. I gotta write that one down. Ice cream truck equals FBI. All right. Please don't use profanity. Striking a comment that had some profanity in there. Yeah, there's this timeline thing that she talked about. It really helped Karen read today. So we're not going to get to that tonight, but this is like really, really this thing about the FBI, very helpful to show there's really something else going on here with this witness. Yeah, Ms. Holmes, you're saying she called all those people, but she did not call her attorney Mr. Reddington. I wonder if she really did call him and she just didn't say that. And it's going to use the excuse, well, I thought I was covered by attorney-client privilege or something like that. So they better ask about her attorney in the room and how much she's been paying. My gosh, if they don't ask that on cross, I'm going to be ticked off. That is huge. Her having this highly expensive in the room, coaching her all these years, advising her. So all these questions she had about preparation with Hank, how do we know that Hank didn't send a script over for her attorney to follow and gave all the pointers through her attorney so then she can have plausible deniability and say, I never spent much time there. Also, was your attorney with you when you're going to talk to these law enforcement prosecutors? Was your attorney in the room when you're being prepped there, or did your attorney do that in his office separately? I've never seen something this bad from a judge. Yeah, who calls her neighbors when the ice cream truck comes? I guess she's reverting back to a little girl type story. I mean, this is so bizarre. How strange is that? Yeah, hopefully they're a lot smarter. G-Lander, such an obvious attempt to minimize the FBI's presence. Yeah, that's what the judge is doing. Massive. That's a huge, massive win for the prosecution by having the feds being kept out of this, especially with ARCA. It's a massive win for the prosecution, a massive form of injustice. Katrina Raven, over-explain her answers that did give away she's guilty and has to keep expounding to drive her lies home. Antoinette, you're saying when she lies, her eyes get big like baseballs. She's maybe trying to keep her eyes open and not blink as much, trying to prevent from closing them and squinting them because it's hard to have your conscience not do that when you're telling some whopper lies. Tatted, you're saying that's a problem. Jackson can't go. hard at her, the judge will admonish him in front of the jury. Well, you also would have sidebars then if she's going to chastise him in front of the jury. I mean, look at how his questioning is of her versus how Brennan acted like such a despicable, not even like an attorney when he was doing that cross on the ARCA experts. Ms. Holmes, you're saying she tells Jackson all the time how to handle the witnesses. Tell him this is your last question and move on. Next question, Mrs. Jackson. On and on and on. When do you hear that say that ever to the prosecution? Chase a cat. How would I address a judge for gaslighting me? I would constantly be having sidebars. I'd be calling this judge out. I'd be asking for a mistrial. I would say, you're forcing me to be ineffective. I can't do my line of questioning. I mean, I would just be standing firm. And if the judges want to keep stuff on schedule and she's cutting me off the knees all the time, I will make sure I build a record, and that's going to take time and that's going to keep her off schedule. Billy Sherman, she's lied so much she can't keep her lies straight. Libby C, this makes me wonder how many innocent people the judge talked into plea deals when she was a public defender. A lot of public defenders are just plain hacks. They don't care about justice. They're just there to do their time and punch out. And yeah, a lot of people that should be going to trial being found not guilty, they just don't develop any trial skills because if they don't want to go to trial, they'll just tell their client, well, you're going to lose if you don't cut a deal. You're going to go way down the river for 50, 60 years. So why don't you take a deal for 5? I mean, it can be really bad. I mean, you can even get that with any attorney. If they're not good in their game, they don't know their craft and trade, and they're not aggressive and have a fighter warrior type mentality, then you can really be sold down the river easily. Okay, can outside lawyers write to the judge herself or amicus brief or something to bring attention to Cannoni's abhorrent behavior? That's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. So sometime tomorrow, I'm going to do a live stream and talk about judicial misconduct. And then tomorrow night, I think we'll cover the rest of this. So I mean, I would have, like, for example, I mean, it's on the FBI thing. Did he bring up the fact that it's a felony? You're looking at prison time for lying up to the FBI about that? I mean, what about Martha Stewart? Martha Stewart's told some simple lie. And look, she went to, what'd she get, like a 5-year prison sentence? And she's worth mega millions and billions, and she couldn't get out of that simple charge. They have no other proof that she was doing insider trading. But they got her on her not being honest about her stock trading. That's all it was. Stand by here. Lynette, you think AJ worries about this judge with good reason? He's not performing at 100%. I mean, mentally, I can tell you, when you have to deal with a judge like this and a prosecutor like this, I've never seen anything this bad from both. I've dealt with really bad prosecutors, similar to Hank. But then when you got a judge that's just an absolute rubber stamp like this, it's mentally being tough and prepared and how to overcome this. You got to keep battling. You got to have a warrior's mentality because they're going to try to wear you out. You can't have any quit in you. Yeah, they need to hit all the reasonable doubt. Massive amounts of reasonable doubt here, not just mentioning it 3 or 4 or 5 times. Then you hit it. That needs to be through and throughout their closing is reasonable doubt. Scooter 54, 18 USC section 1001. Also, one of the things I can talk about tomorrow is, Judge Canoni mentioned that Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct 1.15. I wrote that down when I saw that. And that's not even having anything to do with this case at all and expert witnesses. It has to do with trust funds. Your lawyers, all lawyers have to have trust funds where the money's received from clients. And that's the quickest way you can get disbarred is to mishandle the money of your clients. So this is not like a money issue, a trust fund issue. They're not clients. The ARCA folks are not clients. So the judge cited something that was totally way off base. And most lawyers are not going to know right off the top of their head what that rule is. I think she maybe thought, well, Jackson doesn't know what that 1.15 is. So I can just throw that out there. I mean, it's just really strange that she would come up with some trust fund requirement. Yeah, they call it IOLTA accounts. Every state calls it IOLTA here in the United States. It's you must be a lawyer here, a paralegal. It stands for interest on lawyer's trust account. Anyway, that's let me see if there's any final emails I want to mention. Somebody sent me the 911 call. So let's listen to that real quick. See if we hear it. So, okay, so let me write this down. We stop 310, stop Jen. Remove that. Hold on a second here. All right, listen to this. We started out in the first 15, 20 minutes. We started out with this one, a 911 call, and we could barely hear it. And only, I think it lasted through a very short window, like maybe 40 seconds is what Hank Brennan was asking for. So let's listen to this, see if we hear something different.
Yes, I need someone to come to 34 Fairview Road in Canton, Mass. There's a man passed out in the snow.
All right, you're in Canton. Hold on. I'm going to transfer over to Canton, please. You connected to Nolan, okay?
Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I'm
It's,
sorry.
yeah, it's the tower. Stay on the line.
I think he's dead. We need, you got to get here ASAP, okay?
All right, I'm going to transfer the line. I'm going to transfer the Ken.
Okay. I know. Where are the blankets? I don't see blankets, Carrie.
911, what's your emergency? Hey,
Yes, I need someone to come immediately to 34 Fairview Road, Canton, Mass.
What's going on?
There's a guy unresponsive in the snow.
In the snow at
He
34?
passed out. Yes, 34, the Albert resident. Yes, I just pulled up and found him.
Okay, 34 Fairview?
34 Fairview, Canton, Mass. Yes.
911, that's not recorded. Where's your emergency? Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry. Can you come to 34 Fairview Road in Canton?
34 Fairview?
Why is it so clear on all these YouTube channels than what they played in court? That's really bizarre.
Yes, there's a man unresponsive in the snow.
Okay. Is he,
Guy.
You've got to get here, okay?
okay. What's going on? Is he face down?
We just flipped him over.
Okay. And who's that in the background?
Yeah, why didn't that come out? We just flipped him over.
Is that someone related?
Okay, that's his girlfriend. His name is John O'Keefe.
Okay, how old is he?
John is 46 years old.
46. How long has he been outside?
I don't know. I don't know. He got out of the car and
Is he breathing?
a couple of hours. Is he Carrie? Is he?
He got out of the
I don't.
car. Right there, he got out of the car.
I don't know if he's breathing. There are two women trying to do his body heat, and they're hysterical.
Okay, can you just try to ask him? I know it's tough, but we already have the fire department going. They just got to know if he's breathing.
Is he breathing, you guys? It doesn't seem to be breathing.
Okay, do they know how to do CPR? Do they want to attempt CPR?
Can you guys, Carrie, can you guys do CPR? No, I guess he's gone.
Okay, they don't feel comfortable doing so?
No, I think he's passed away.
Okay. All right, we got the fire department and the police department on the way. If everyone's declining CPR, then I'll hang up with you, and if anything changes, you can give us a call back. Where are you guys outside?
Oh, right out front of his car. I know, I'm on the phone with the ambulance. I know, honey, I know.
He's not breathing.
So, Carrie, you got to get off him, honey. Carrie, you got to get off of him.
Why is she telling Carrie to get off of him? Why is she telling Carrie to get off of him? It's so strange.
Do you know if there was any alcohol or drugs involved?
They had been out. They had been out.
They, not we. The they. It's so, even this 911 call is so deceptive. Why didn't we hear all these details?
They've been out drinking.
Yes, but I'm talking hours ago, maybe. And I think I don't know how long he's been in the snow.
Okay, is there any bleeding or anything? Maybe he hit his head out?
Yes, possibly. There seems to be bleeding in the face.
Okay, bleeding from the face.
Well, if you flipped him over, didn't you see all the blood laying there? For crying out loud, what's going on?
All right.
Yes.
And how big's the pool of blood, if there is any?
Something's coming out of his nose, and one of the women is doing CPR.
Just coming out the nose. Yeah, and that massive gash on the back of his head, you missed that?
Okay, one of the women is doing CPR?
Yes, they're both working on him.
All right, if she's doing CPR, just just give us a call back if he becomes responsive, right? But we're on the way.
Okay, thank you.
Let me say.
All right, there you have it. I mean, that's a night and day difference. So that's something that's wow. If that was enhanced somehow, and we've seen enhancements in the Adelson case, enhancements happen all the time. So I don't know why they're not doing it in this case, and how they're able to get away with a completely different 911 type of call that was recorded in court today. So Andy Logan, your husband is a judge in Tennessee. Yeah, I can imagine what he thinks of this case, right? Night and day difference in most other courts in America, and this court up there in Massachusetts. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off tonight. Thanks for all your support. Plan to be on back tomorrow night sometime. some of y'all, when I was talking about, I don't give out what you're not receiving notices of my live stream. Sometimes I just jump on and maybe only give 15, 20 minutes notice. So that could be part of the problem as well, where you're not getting further notice. But usually sometime between 8 and 10 o'clock at night, Central Time, United States, is when I tend to be covering this case in the evening. So I plan to cover it every evening. That's my goal. If there's a hearing that day, I plan to cover it. But because Jen is such a massive witness for the defense, I'm going to cover her tomorrow night as well. And like I say, cover the judicial aspect sometime tomorrow during the day. Don't have a time yet, but we'll be working on that. So other than that, thanks for supporting justice for Karen Reed and her family. And hope to see you back tomorrow. Thanks. Take care.